A top financial expert gave a chilling warning on Monday that a recession will, quote unquote, absolutely come this year if tariffs remain at their current levels. Chief economist at Apollo Global Management, Torsten Slok, appeared on CNBC's Monday. Take a look at what he had to say.
Your note over the weekend refers to what you're calling the voluntary trade reset recession, right? In which you sort of delineate all the consecutive challenges that the economy is potentially going to bear, right?
Yeah, because the issue is that tariffs of this magnitude on China is having a very significant impact on small businesses. Large businesses can pay the extra cost because when goods come from China to Los Angeles, then of course you have to pay now a higher tariff. Large companies have the resources and the working capital to deal with that, but small businesses do not have the working capital. So think about your independent toy seller in Nebraska, your men's clothing wearer in Wyoming, think about your Colorado seller of ski gear. They basically do not have money and cash to pay 145% extra. So we will have bankruptcies of retailers of very significant magnitudes if this is allowed to continue.
Okay, so you got that. The big box stores that have been backing Donald Trump against American consumers will probably be just fine. It's the small businesses that may well suffer. Retailer bankruptcies are coming and fast if Donald doesn't reverse course and at least lower his nonsensical and ridiculous tariffs. The loss in the real time market for small businesses again would damage both workers and consumer sentiment. Small businesses with fewer than 500 employees account for 80% of the labor force. This news comes in the wake of an incredibly worrisome stock market. The Dow Jones, S&P 500, and Nasdaq all fell more than 2% yesterday after Donald went on the offensive. Went on the offensive, okay, and attacked Fed Chair Jerome Powell, calling him, quote, a major loser, unquote, because apparently we're having a food fight now. Investors fear the Fed's independence is at risk, causing them to offload U.S. stocks. So it's bad enough that Donald is continuing to impose tariffs that are terrible for the American consumer, but now he's putting us even further at risk by attacking the Fed chair, whose only job is to protect the American economy from the kind of stupidity Donald is subjecting all of us to. The market's only getting worse, of course. The Dow is now headed for its worst April performance since 1932, and that's according to Dow Jones market data. The S&P 500's performance since Inauguration Day is now the worst for any president up to this point in data going back to 1928, according to Bespoke Investment Group. Meanwhile, different assets that usually strengthen when stocks fall, like government bonds and the US dollar, are also under pressure, leaving investors with few alternative options. And additionally, most investors don't believe that the Trump regime's negotiations with trade partners will yield any results soon enough to ease the strain. All of this is to say, investors are sending no confidence signals because they too believe we're headed for a recession. And we are, unless the one man responsible for this chaos and uncertainty and volatility, three things the markets absolutely hate, changes course. How many times do we have to say this? This is not going to happen unless something really drastic goes on behind the scenes, because he's incapable of admitting he's wrong. And changing course is kind of admitting you're wrong, isn't it? It's what mature human beings do when they recognize they're going in the wrong direction. They're going in a direction that is harmful, either to their families or their companies or their countries. They say, wait a minute, let me rethink this. Let me talk to the experts. But instead, Donald doubles down, triples down, quadruples down on the terrible policy, like the absolutely unprovoked unilateral trade war he started months ago, and now attacking the one man in this country who is trying his level best, Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, to stabilize the economy that Donald Trump is single-handedly blowing up. Not surprisingly, the forecast globally is looking just as bad. The International Monetary Fund has dramatically cut its global growth forecast, blaming the economic disruption from Donald's sweeping tariffs and rising trade tensions. Global growth is now projected to fall from 2.8% in 2025, down from 3.3% last year and earlier projections. 2026 growth has also been revised downward to 3%, citing direct damage from tariffs and, quote, extremely high levels of policy uncertainty, unquote. A chart in the IMF report shows the U.S. effective tariff rate is now the highest since the era of the Great Depression. Yes, I feel America becoming greater and greater again by the minute. And while tariffs may lower prices in other countries, the IMF expects U.S. inflation to stay stuck at 3%, warning that tariffs are raising domestic price pressures, not reducing them. The trade war is similarly rattling Europe, with EU consumer sentiment plunging to negative 16.7, casting doubt on any hope for a consumption-led recovery in 2025. And of course, this is all down to Donald Trump because he doesn't know what he's doing, and nobody can figure out how to get him to back off. And in fact, what's happening? You have individual countries, individual companies going to him and trying to cut deals to protect their self-interests while tariffs stay in place in other countries and with other companies. So some companies are exempt because God knows what kind of deals they made with Donald Trump to appease his pathetic little ego or to enrich him so that their stockholders are okay. So Apple, for example, does not have to be subjected to that 145% tariff on Chinese products. But then what happens to the rest of the companies that can't make deals? What happens to the rest of those countries that either can't or won't because they refuse to give in to this petty tyrant? Before we go further, please hit like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We're pushing for 400,000 subscribers, and we really want to get there so we can stop saying we're pushing for 400,000 subscribers, because we'd like to start saying we're pushing for 500,000. As independent media, your support helps us reach more people and keeps us going. It's not just the stock market that's suffering from Donald's incompetence. Gold hit a record high of $3,500.05 per ounce yesterday. I hope nobody has to buy jewelry anytime soon, as investor fears grew over economic instability driven by Donald's escalating attacks on Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, which, by the way, I want to put this in context. This is unheard of. It is unheard of for an American president to insert himself in whatever the Fed does, first of all, and to attack the Fed chair personally. And also along with Donald's continued push for aggressive tariffs, because there is no end in sight. Gold is up more than 31% this year, fueled by rising demand for safe assets amid fears of a U.S. recession, falling confidence in the dollar, which, by the way, is the global currency, as well as global uncertainty worsened by Donald's trade policies. While gold rose, the dollar fell. That's bad. The dollar has fallen sharply since Donald's inauguration and has fallen even more rapidly in the wake of tariffs. His threats towards Powell have only expedited the fall, signaling that global investors want nothing to do with U.S. investments, while Donald continues to play his dangerous tariff games, but also his continuingly dangerous game in trying to insert himself in yet another area of the United States government he is supposed to stay out of. The Fed chair's job is to try to stabilize the markets by lowering or raising interest. I mean, it's much more complicated than that, obviously, but this is not my area of expertise. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible so even Donald Trump could understand it. Stabilize the markets by raising or lowering interest rates depending on things like prices, where inflation is, what's going on in the global markets, and just how fucking insane the guy in the Oval Office is. That's what the Fed chair is trying to do. Donald keeps attacking, and not just attacking him by saying, I disagree with you. We need to lower interest rates, which, by the way, would be ill advised, but by attacking him personally, by saying he's stupid and a loser. Donald, stop looking in the mirror when you think you're talking to other people. It's embarrassing and telling. As if economic turmoil weren't enough, the regime's newest plan will completely have negative impacts on the middle class. You know, the middle class, those people that Republicans are supposed to care about. I mean, when have they ever? Truly. But that's what they purport to care about. Donald is not just coming for global businesses. He's coming for middle and lower class borrowers in the United States. The so-called Education Department, now under Secretary Linda McMahon, whose brief it is basically to end the Department of Education, will resume collections on defaulted federal student loans, including wage garnishment and tax refund withholding, after a 5-year COVID era pause that began in March 2020. Watch this clip from NBC9 News from Denver, Colorado.
The Department of Education says that more than 5 million borrowers are in default, meaning they haven't made a payment in nearly a year. Another 4 million are in late-stage delinquency with their loans, meaning they haven't paid in months. According to the Department of Ed, only 38% of student loan borrowers are on current with their loan payments, and they haven't collected on defaulted loans since March 2020. But who owes and how much has been in question for years after a back and forth between President Joe Biden and the Supreme Court over canceling the student loan debt for millions. Dylan M. Harris, a professor at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, says
it's really unclear what's going on and what to expect or anticipate, but nonetheless, people are being impacted in significant material ways, right? Students owe money, right? And when they owe it, how much they owe, who they're paying it to, these things are changing literally every day. It's very confusing and I think actually really devastating.
Yeah, well, they want us confused. Critics warn this move will intensify financial hardship and confusion, especially amid recent loan policy whiplash and the tariff insanity. And to make matters worse, layoffs at the Federal Student Aid Office have made it difficult for borrowers to get help. Recent legal challenges have also disrupted income-driven repayment plans, causing widespread uncertainty. Advocates call this move cruel and a threat to working families still recovering from economic instability. Soon, borrowers may be getting wages garnished or could even lose their homes right on the brink of a predicted recession. Yes, so it's worth repeating. President Joe Biden wanted to forgive student loans. It is obscene that in the richest country on the planet, people had to go into tens of thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to better themselves and to put themselves in a position to have the kinds of careers they wanted. Remember, he wanted to forgive those loans. He tried. He tried really hard. And yet, the Supreme Court said no. For some reason, that's unconstitutional. People need to be in debt forever. There are people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and older still paying off student loans from college. It's obscene. So, luckily, despite the fact that student loan forgiveness was disallowed, there was a moratorium on paying back said loans because of COVID, as mentioned. And just when things were starting to get better during the Biden-Harris administration, 74 million Americans decided, let's throw the dice again and see what's going to happen if we put an idiot back in the White House, a guy who is innumerate and knows nothing about the economy. Why not? Well, just in time for a recession that is being started on purpose. Like, seriously, Donald Trump inherited one of the strong, if not the strongest economy on the planet, despite the relatively high inflation, despite the relatively high prices. The United States economy was, according to The Economist, the envy of the world. And 3 months later, that has all not just been squandered, it has been turned around. So we are this close to a global recession that could go very, very badly, very, very quickly. All because what? People didn't want to elect a woman, a Black woman, a woman of color? Probably. Well, you reap what you sow, and here we are continuing to find out. Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.